So in the period of Soviet occupation, we had these conservatives. This is Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. I don't know how many heard what happened last night in Kabul. There was a suicide bombing. It was about 15 to 20 minutes far from my house. And around 4 civilians and 8 foreigners were killed. And his party took responsibility for it. And this guy still exists. And this is the same guy that the United States funded during the Soviet occupation. They gave him $55 million to defeat Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Just this individual, his party, to just do that. And then the other conservatives are radicals. Is Mullah Mahmoud Omar. He was the Afghanistan's president during the Taliban regime. That's the only picture that exists of him. There's no other picture. And they're saying that he's blind in one eye, as you can see. The next one is Jalaluddin Haqqani. I know that, I'm sure that if you guys read news, there's a lot about the Haqqani group. That's his tribe. He started it. And United States funds in Afghanistan went through that guy in 19, like, that was the gate for ISI to give money to, and then he was distributing it among Mujahideen to fight against Soviet Union. And the other radical was Muhammad Devi Muhammadi. He was another radical that was fighting, and the other one was called Maulavi Khalas. These people, they called these people back then, I mean, even now, my father called these people the backward people. What they wanted to do to keep Afghanistan in the dark ages. By that I mean they didn't want any foreign intervention. First of all, they didn't want any, we call it democracy. They didn't want any democracy. They wanted to implement their laws and their rules. These are the people. And then we had what's called moderates, and the moderates were from north. The radicals were from south. That's the difference. And the moderates were Rabbani. He was assassinated last year. He was in peace negotiations with Taliban. That a guy with a bomb in his turban came and killed him. It was a suicide bomb. We have Ismail Khan. He's still in the government right now. And we have Ahmad Shah Massoud. He's another moderate. He fought in the north, and he fought against Russians, and he fought against Taliban for 5 years of Taliban. And then we have Rashid Dostum, and we have other people who fought during Taliban and during Russians. And the difference between these people were the people that they were saying that, okay, we want democracy, we want Afghanistan for Afghan people, we do not want foreigners to be in Afghanistan. That was these people's goal. And in 1989, when the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan, the situation in the government was already bad. The level of corruption was really high. The nepotism was bad. Every single person knew each other. They were either brothers, nephew, or somehow they were related to each other. And in 1989, Soviet withdrew. The moderates and radicals got together and they started to topple the Najib's government, which was called the puppet government of Russia. And they wanted to overthrow him. And 1992, they overthrew him, they came to Kabul. And the reason that they overthrew him, that in 1991, Soviet Union collapsed. The moment that Soviet Union collapsed, the amount of funding for the Najib's government to hold up the central government was gone. He didn't have any funding to keep up with the army, to keep the army to fight. And there was no sense of responsibility among his generals, because all of them were clear and they knew that the moment that Kabul collapses, they can take off and they can go to Moscow and they can be safe there. And that is happening right now too in Afghanistan. And I'm going to come back to that later on. So these are the moderates. And Taliban came in 1992, and 1992, the first time when Taliban started, they started in Kandahar. You can see, this is Kandahar. They started over there, and there's a region that's called Pashtunistan, and it's this region. It's between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And these are a tribe, Pashtun, that's their nationality. They're Pashtuns, and I'm a Tajik. That's the difference. And Afghanistan is made of 5 different ethnicities: Pashtuns, Tajiks, Turkmens, Hazaras, and Baluchs. And Mullah Mahmud Umar and Taliban. Talib means student, Taliban means students. There is no such a thing, Talibans. It doesn't make sense. But think about it, we're all Talibs. We're all students. That's what it is. There's no bad meaning to it. We're all Talibs. They were just students. They studied in madrasas, which is Islamic schools. And these madrasas were built in the refugee camps of Afghans when Soviet Union came and Afghans left to go to Pakistan. Those madrasas were in these refugee camps along the border. And they came in power. They took over Afghanistan in 1986. The Kabul fall in their hands in 1996. They had the control of Kabul for 5 years. But you can see that the dark gray color, that is the region that Massoud defended. And there hasn't been anyone in the history that has taken control of that part of the world as an occupier. We don't consider the United States as an occupier right now, but an occupier who came and said that I want to take this land. There hasn't been anyone in history, even the great Alexander. He could not go to his place because there are people they're known as the Lions of Afghanistan. They fight for their land, and they fight until they die, and they keep producing babies. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah. So that was the situation, and Massoud, who was a moderate guy, he in 2001, in August of 2001, he had a conference in France. That in his press conference, he said that for international community and especially for Bush's administration, he said, "Look, Afghanistan, these people, Taliban, are violating every single human rights that exist out there. They're violating anything. We don't have sense of personal space. We can't even control ourselves. Like we were asked to grow beard, like the people who can grow beards, they were not allowed to cut their beard. So all these different laws that were implemented to Afghans. So Massoud asked everyone, and actually Donald Rumsfeld was there, I think, and then he asked him personally in press conference. He said, "I'm asking you to do this." And then there's, I don't want to make this a big deal, but there's conspiracy or whatever you call it, that conspiracy theory that these two people, Massoud and Donald Rumsfeld, they met after the conference, and Rumsfeld offered him that he said, "Okay, I'm gonna come and fight, but you gotta let me who to put as a power." But Massoud does not like that. Massoud didn't like that. Massoud didn't want anyone to be in power but Afghans, who they wanted to choose, like a democracy. But the deal was not cut, so Massoud went to Afghanistan. But the thing is, I think we have to connect the dots. That happened in August, and Massoud was assassinated in 9 September 2001. And then 9/11 happened. And then the United States went to Afghanistan. I'm gonna let you guys connect the dots. And then from 2001, I was in Pakistan actually during occupation of Taliban. I went back to Afghanistan in late October, beginning of December, back to Afghanistan. And being honest, I was 14 years old. And being honest, from 2001 until the end of 2002, that was the best 2 years of my life that I had in Afghanistan. There was no guns fired. There were no suicide bombing. There was nothing. I want that Afghanistan to be back. But in end of 2002, something just went wrong in international community. The international community just stopped paying attention to Afghanistan. United States just focused in Iraq. They didn't pay enough attention to Afghanistan. They didn't help the military to be strong enough to defend the country. And they put all the resources to Iraq, and they left Afghanistan to its people.